In 1989, we were introduced to two bumbling teens who took us on a history lesson through time in order to pass high school, since they are destined to save all of mankind through the sounds of their own music. In 1991, we followed those two same rockers as they go through literally life and death in order to ensure that they put on a show of a lifetime and once again unite humanity. Now it's 2020, and much like how this year has been, so has been the luck of these two who find themselves in a major rut because everything that was predicted for them still has not come true. And 29 years later, they are faced with making things right again, not only for the world, but for themselves. So does Bill and Ted Face the Music prove itself to be most non-heinous? Well, here are my 2 cents, dude. Hey guys, Renee of Lowkey Geek here, and if you couldn't tell by my shirt, I'm a huge fan of Bill and Ted. Always been a fan of the first movie, and even like the second movie just as much, if not even better. So one thing I was really worried about when Bill and Ted 3 came out was, will it be able to kind of still carry on that same charm that these two movies had, especially during the times that they came out in? You know, like during the late 80s and early 90s, we were inundated with these type of characters, whether it be the portrayal of Bill and Ted or Pauly Shore and the numerous amounts of movies that he was in. MTV was still huge, so obviously music and music videos had a huge impact on the audience and these type of characters. So now times are a little different, and I was always concerned, can Bill and Ted work now? And one of the things I have to tell you right off the bat is that it does. Surprisingly, it works in different ways, though, I would say. And obviously, before I go into my full review and go into any spoilers, if you like what you see, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. It definitely helps with the channel and all the algorithms, and it helps me kind of improve on the channel and help my videos get out to more people like you. So there are several things that the movie does really well, and one of the things that they do really well is it still provides that silly and goofy type of movie that we have already been so used to in the last two. It doesn't really try to take itself too seriously, and it shouldn't have to. It's a movie, again, about these two bumbling guys who can't seem to get things right. And you could kind of tell when this movie first starts off that they are exhausted and, obviously much older. And, they still haven't figured it out, after all of their experiences and adventures together. They're still with their wives, which is pretty funny because they could never seem to cast the two same actresses from previous movies. So we are once again with two different actresses for these roles. But, that kind of doesn't deter away from the entire chemistry that they have with their significant others there. But the one great thing that they definitely do get right is the chemistry with Keanu and Alex Winters. It's still there. You could totally tell that they're still having fun, that they really enjoyed making this movie. And, all the same type of beats that they shared still remain, like how it has been in the last two movies. Now, the only difference here is that it's interesting, as I watched 1 and 2 all over again, I can tell that when I was watching those movies, I saw Keanu as Ted always, especially with movies that he's done after that. Now, after The Matrix and after movies like John Wick, when I watch Bill and Ted 3, I now see Keanu being Keanu. He seems to be a little bit more melancholy, not like the happy-go-lucky Ted that we're used to in the last two movies. He's still pretty much aloof for the most part, but you rarely see Ted smiling in this movie. That goofiness that he really had in the first two is very demurred here. When the movie starts off, one of the first things he tells Bill was that he's tired. He's tired of constantly trying to work so hard to come up with this song that's supposed to magically save and unite all of humanity. And maybe that's why he is that way. Now, Alex Winters, on the other hand, he's Bill. He's always been Bill, and he's definitely Bill here, an older Bill, but Bill nonetheless. Another great thing that they did in this movie is they did a great job in having something for the hardcore fans and follower of the Bill and Ted franchise to kind of latch onto and really pay attention to. And then those who are not as invested in this franchise, or maybe never even grew up or watched any of the movies, they have something for them. And that comes into the form of the daughters in the movie. You know, it's nice to see Bill and Ted at the ages that they are now, still trying to figure things out and going on their adventure. But it's great to see how the daughters kind of take over the mantle here. And in essence, it totally feels like the daughters are going through that journey that their fathers went through in the first movie, just in a different light and in a different way. You know, they are tasked, or they put it upon themselves actually, to go back in time to kind of gather all of these historic people within music to kind of help their fathers come up with that perfect song and provide the band for that song. But little did they know that they were going to be the ones who are going to be full front and center in everything when it comes out at the end. Now, when you have Bill and Ted, you know, the same antics that they were doing in the previous movies seem to have not been working for them now. I feel like they rested too much on their own laurels and, you know, kind of like, well, if we can, you know, go into the future and talk to ourselves who already figured things out, then we can bring that back. And it turns out that the future thems were aware that that was going to be the case and tried to make it as hard on them as possible, because at the end of the day, and again, huge spoiler alert here, it's not Bill and Ted specifically who saved all of humanity and the world. It's actually their daughters, because this is, again, the passing of the mantle and the realization that they had at the end of the movie where, wait, it's not on us this time. It's actually on to our daughters, because, you know, they're the ones who are now carrying over things, and they're the ones who have the insights. You know, the two girls are huge music aficionados, and they're the ones that listen to beats, and they can put beats together and they can marry things together, and they're the ones that kind of lead the ensemble, and of course allowing their own fathers to cap it up at the end, to create this monumentous song that saves all of the world and mankind. The movie itself too also feels like a great mix of everything we saw in 1 and 2 combined together. You have time travel, and then you do have the visiting of hell, and that's how we get introduced once again to Death, played by the great William Sadler. And he definitely still has those comedic timings and brings a lot of great comedic moments in this movie. But I think the one thing that, or at least the one person and character that stole the movie from me completely, was Anthony Carrigan. He plays the robot from the future that was sent back to kind of kill Bill and Ted, because basically the future had enough and things aren't working out. So they felt that maybe, you know, Rufus was wrong the whole time, and maybe it's the death of these two that helps save everything. So, you know, the robot, at first when he shows up, I thought it was like the cliche, oh god, here we go, you know, death robot from the future, kind of like Terminator to take them out. But when things don't really go his way, his personality comes out, and it is hilarious. And I'm telling you, he is the one that is like number one comedy stealing moments for me throughout this whole film. And if Anthony Carrigan, the name itself, doesn't sound familiar to you, then maybe you'll know him better as NoHo Hank from the HBO comedy series Barry. He plays that you know, the Russian mobster that, you know, Barry befriends and all that. And if you love him in Barry, which I do, I think he's so fantastic in Barry, you're definitely going to love his character here. And as I mentioned before, you have Samara Weaving, who plays Thea, who is the daughter of Bill. And then you have Bridget Lundy Payne, who plays Billy, who is the daughter of Ted. And, you know, they are refreshing new characters in this storyline who, again, like I said, take over the mantle for Bill and Ted and kind of go on their own history traveling journey to kind of bring these notable persons into the present and help their fathers here. And the one thing that I also found interesting, and I don't know if this is a thing that they got right or one thing that I would put in a negative aspect, was that they, for me, felt more like Bill and Ted than their own fathers did. Again, you know, Alex and Keanu are older now, so maybe that energy is not there. But the way that these two ladies portray the daughters of the two fathers, I feel like I am watching a new Bill and Ted here. And who knows, if they decide to carry this franchise again further, or maybe spin it off a little bit, these two will be perfect Bill and Teds for a new generation. And I really do think it is this new generation that's going to latch onto them, and it will speak more to this newer generation for this movie. What did the movie get wrong? Or what were some of the things that they did badly? Well, it's kind of hard to say, because one thing I realized when this movie came out was that, or when the movie was in production, was it finished production right before COVID hit and right before everybody was in quarantine. So the one thing I would say that kind of like threw me off a little bit is that a lot of the scenes, or maybe I shouldn't say a lot of the scenes, but there were definitely some scenes that didn't feel as polished. You know, you could kind of tell like it kind of lacked that a proper post-production, or maybe just a little bit more touch-up. And honestly, the movie just ended so abruptly, like out of nowhere. I remember, so I've watched it twice now, but I was watching the movie and during my first viewing, and when the movie ended, I was just like, whoa, that's it? You know, like, granted, the movie is short. It's only like an hour, like a little over an hour and 30 minutes. But when it ended, it kind of just ended like out of nowhere for me. Another thing that kind of threw me off is that, you know, you can kind of tell that there were some scenes that probably could have gone a little bit more, or they could have added a little bit extra stuff to it. So knowing that this movie didn't really have any pure proper post-production time, or even just the you know, everyone talks about the negativity behind you know, filming newer scenes, or you know, doing reshoots. I could tell that this movie didn't do any of that, and maybe it could have hurt it a little bit. Still, the end product is good enough, but still, I could only imagine how much further it could have gone if it actually went through the proper post-production and reshoot period. And I think because of that, I'm actually happy that they released it on video on demand instead of releasing it in the theater, because I think this movie possibly would not have done that great in the theaters. It did kind of have that feeling for me of a Netflix type movie, or really like a movie that you would find you know, streaming as a premium video on demand movie. And again, I don't want to take anything away from the movie. That's just the feeling I got from it, the way it looked, the way it kind of, you know, everything was put together there. It just had that feeling for me. So, and you know, knowing how people react to things in the big screen, and knowing how much money they have to shell out for that. Now, granted, you had to shell out a pretty decent amount of money for this as well, but I think if people saw this in the big theater or in the big screen, it wouldn't have gotten the type of reviews that we're probably getting now. Another thing that this movie was lacking, and it's no fault of theirs, because it's just unfortunate, but I really felt that the movie missed George Carlin as Rufus. You know, granted, they had Kristen Schaal, who played Kelly, who was Rufus's daughter, and she does kind of have that same mannerisms and kind of personality as Rufus has. So you can totally tell that she is Rufus's daughter. But George Carlin was a huge part of the first two movies, and I really felt that we missed that presence in this movie. And if you guys are wondering, they did have a great homage to him in the beginning of the movie, as Bill and Ted goes back to the future. Get that? But as they go into the future, and they're making their way towards to meeting who they're supposed to meet up with, they see the old phone booth machine and a holographic image of George Carlin as Rufus. And apparently that holographic image kind of is like a history lesson in its own, as he explains that this is the first prototype of the time traveling machine that Bill and Ted use, or what have you, to kind of save humanity and this and that. And you can kind of hear that they had new dialogue for that as well. So I don't know if they were able to get some sort of voice actor to portray those lines or anything like that, but it was a nice little homage to George Carlin. And even as the characters Bill and Ted, you could tell that they missed him. And when it popped up, I'll be honest, I got a little emotional too, and I missed him as well, and I was like, it's too bad that he couldn't be in this movie. But I did like the fact that they were able to pay a little tribute to him, and I thought that was perfectly done. So one thing I really do like about the movie as well is the same jokes that they had in the previous two movies carried over very well in this one. Like I mentioned before, the two actresses always change who play the princesses, so that's one thing. Missy comes back, and this time she's marrying Deacon. She's married to Deacon, who happens to be Ted's younger brother that we only really saw in the first movie as he was babysitting Napoleon. And now Deacon's all grown up and happens to be working on the police force with his father. So you could kind of see the anguish of Ted's father, him being the last one who was married to Missy. So it was kind of funny how they carried that whole thing about Missy jumping from one family to the other. So that was pretty comical there. So overall, do I really enjoy this movie? Yeah, I thought it was a pretty good movie. I thought it was pretty decent. It was fun. It was entertaining. Do I think it's probably the best in the trilogy? No, not at all. Do I feel like it's probably one of the best comedies I've seen this year? No, I wouldn't say that. However, I do feel like it's a comedy, and the perfect comedy that we would want to see right now. With everything happening in this world, in the news and everything being very depressing and bleak, it's just refreshing to see something as lighthearted and silly and goofy as Bill and Ted. When I watched the first two movies, I came away from it just entertained, big smile on my face, watching these two idiots kind of go through their journeys and adventures, and still at the end of the day make it through. And you kind of see that here as well. But this time they get help. This time it's not up to them. They don't have to carry all the burden on their shoulders, because now it's being carried and passed on with some assistance from their own daughters. So it's a refreshing movie overall. I really do enjoy it. If you're a fan of the Bill and Ted franchise, you won't be disappointed. If you didn't grow up with Bill and Ted, or you're new to it and you've never watched the movies, I think you will get something out of this too. Especially having it be so centric with the daughters, having them play such an important role here, having music once again be center in here, going through music history the way it did. Kid Cudi shows up being very scientific and understanding of physics, and the way like the time warping and traveling kind of works and goes hand in hand was pretty hilarious and unexpected. So I feel like these are some of the things that a newer generation can pick up on and really enjoy. So what would be my overall rating of the movie? I would pretty much give it like a 3 out of 5 phone booths. So you'll see again a thematic to my review system here. And why only three? Three is actually not a bad score. Like I said, it's entertaining, it was fun, but it's not the greatest comedy I've watched. It's not like the greatest comedy of this year, and it's honestly not the strongest of the three, but still, it's still enjoyable. I would compare it to Back to the Future 3. For me, Back to the Future 3 was not the strongest of the trilogy. Some would say Back to the Future 2. So I feel like every trilogy that still has a rich history, whether it be like Back to the Future, now Bill and Ted, there's always going to be that one that is a little bit, not underwhelming, but still enjoyable and really caps the trilogy out together. Now, are they going to carry on the franchise? Who knows? If they don't, I'm happy with it. I feel like it closes off on a good note. But if they do, it would be interesting to see the two daughters really take over the mantle and see what kind of adventures they can go on. So 3 out of 5. And guys, I'm curious to see what you guys think about the movie. Did you enjoy it? Was Bill and Ted a big part of your movie loving history growing up? Have you never heard of Bill and Ted up until now when the new movie came out? Would you wear a shirt like this? I don't know, but I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. So do leave your thoughts in the comments and your feedback. Or if you are interested in watching someone play games online, you could always follow me on Twitch and we could have great conversations there. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. And again, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll catch you all next time. Bye. Oh, hey guys. Thanks again for watching. If you want to check out my other videos, make sure to access them through this menu that you see on this side of the screen. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, or hit that logo you see right here on this side of the screen. I've always wanted to do that. Catch you next time.